Well, we're going to begin. Welcome, everybody, to our session, Faith Formation for All the Seasons of Life. My name is John Roberto. I work in lifelong faith formation and have all my life. My website, lifelongfaith.com, Lifelong Faith Associates, is where I do my work, writing, searching, teaching, etc. What I want to do is I'm going to put a message to everybody, and just to remind you that if you would use the chat for questions, and you could put them in any time during the presentation, I will keep it open so I can see you, and then I'll try to respond appropriately when we get to that point. What I've done with this presentation, obviously this presentation will be very different prior to March 1 of 2020 than it is today. So I've really kind of this towards how we think about faith formation now in kind of where we are in terms of faith formation. Let me launch in. You can always reach me at jroberto@lifelongfaith.com. That's my email. If you have questions on the presentation, feel free to send me a note. And my website is lifelongfaith.com. So you pretty much got the lifelong faith part down. And if you go to the website, what you'll see, what you'll see will be, when you get to the website, what you'll see is a page on the website that's just for the APSE conference. And so just go to the home page of the website, and you click on home, you'll see APSE 2021. The PowerPoint's there, a couple of articles are there, and some resources are there to help. So I'll refer to that page, but just go to lifelongfaith.com. You'll see all of it there, and go to the home, and then just click on the home page. You'll see APSE 2021 for everything. And that link is also on the APSE website for this session. Way back in March of 2020, I'm sure you can all remember the day that the world closed because of the pandemic. There was a wonderful article that Andy Crouch and his colleagues wrote, and it was called Blizzard Winter or Ice Age. And the heart of this was simply, how do we think about the era that we find ourselves in? And the authors posed this: at the beginning of the pandemic, would it just be a blizzard? So I live in Connecticut. Over the weekend, we had just that, a blizzard. We had about 1.5 feet of snow where I live. But the blizzard comes and the blizzard goes. It leaves behind snow, but then you plow out and you dig out. And usually the day after a blizzard, it's this great, gorgeous blue sky day, kind of a reprieve from the bad weather. So that's one image. So the second image was that of a winter. And the winter is a season. You kind of have a sense of when it's coming, and have kind of a sense roughly of when it's leaving. And it's an extended time, but you know that there's a beginning and an end. He said, or this pandemic can be an ice age. It has no determinate ending point. It disrupts all of life, and it creates a whole new set of circumstances. And so kind of the question that he posed back in March of 2020, will the pandemic be a blizzard, winter, or ice age? And I think what we've discovered is it's more than a season, and it's a little bit more of a different era. So maybe it's an ice age. They posed this question that I thought was really important. So what time do you think it is? He said, this time poses the greatest leadership crisis any of us have faced. It can be a moment of amazing creativity, though it is also going to be a time of unavoidable pain and loss. And we've seen that happen in real time. We'll discover that while many resources are suddenly unavailable to us, the most essential resource is still available, and the most important reality has not changed. The reality is that God has called us to a time like this, given us a mission and a community to serve alongside, and we still have the most important resource, which is trust in the context of love. Everything depends on how quickly and thoroughly we move to build on that resource starting today. Now, that was almost a year ago they wrote that. And it's as true today as it was when they wrote it. So the question I have for us today is, what time is it? And I think this is actually the time to reinvent faith formation. And I'll explain why, and I'll explain how a little bit. And I built the Lifelong Faith website to help you do that. Where are we today? We can remember back, if you can, to March 1 of 2020 and the era prior to that. That was the old order. We had a particular way of doing things. I'm going to focus this primarily on faith formation, but you could apply this to church life and to society in general. There was rules, there was patterns, there were programs, there were schedules, and some of them had been in place, especially in terms of faith formation. Sunday school and our times of meeting, the rest have been in place for generations. The pandemic arrived, life closed down on or around March 15th, and a major disruption happened really literally to every aspect of our social life. There was really nothing about our lives that was not disrupted in some way, shape, or form by the pandemic. And that meant faith formation as well. So the disruption happened. People pivoted, they moved quickly, they tried to adjust. And what happened as this moved from a season to an ice age is that we entered this liminal period. Liminal period doesn't have a starting point or ending point. It kind of comes out of the disruption, and when it ends, we don't know. But in the liminal time is we're trying to adjust to the new reality. And I would say a year into this, we've had the major disruption. It continues to disrupt life, continues to disrupt church life, continues to disrupt faith formation. And we're in this liminal period. Now, the nice thing about liminal periods are there are times of great creativity. I mean, they can be, or there be times of great retrenchment, meaning we circle the wagons and we try to hold on until the old order is restored. But one of the things about change process, and we're going to see this play out in front of us in real time in 2021, is that the old order is not going to return. The disruption, which has filtered across all life, including church life and faith formation, has disrupted things permanently. And so in this liminal period, the key is how do we plan, how do we create, how do we innovate to create a new order, a new stability, new rules, new patterns, and that's what's going to emerge. Todd Bolsinger, working off the work of Ronald Heifetz and company, but Bolsinger in a wonderful article talked about acute phase and adaptive phase. And what he means by this is the emergency or acute phase, which is what we have experienced, is the disorienting and almost desperate stage, like being wheeled into an emergency room. The goal of the acute stage is survival. Calm down, stabilize, protect the organization, rest, sleep, breathe. This is the phase that many of us experienced when the pandemic first started. And so people quickly moved, gathered programs online, sent resources home, hoped and prayed someone would open the resources once they got home, all those kind of things. Worship began to be streamed, even in churches that didn't own any streaming technology whatsoever. And the last thought of their mind was they would ever stream Sunday worship. That's the acute phase. The acute phase can be followed by an adaptive phase. And I think this is the liminal period. The adaptive phase comes next if you choose to enter it. Both Heifetz and Bolsinger both emphasize that point. Adapting is a choice. Being in the acute phase, redesigning programs, getting things going, maintaining things, staying alive, that's just an innate response. But the adaptive phase is a choice. The adaptive phase is when the emergency is passed, but a high stakes of somewhat less urgent set of challenges remains. Having survived, how do you adapt to the uncertainties of a new reality in order to thrive? And that's the move from liminality to the new order. The crisis is far from over. The adaptive phase is when a leader chooses to utilize the shock of the crisis to hit the organization reset button. It's the moment to look deeply at the underlying issues that people have not had the will to confront before the crisis. It is the opportunity to bring real deep change. And that's where we find ourselves today in terms of faith formation. As a parenthesis, every church, every denomination talks about lifelong faith formation. Precious few realize that vision of faith formation from the youngest to the oldest in a church. And so we have the opportunity to bring real and deep change because everything has been disrupted and our patterns have changed. So what are we learning? I wrote this article. The whole article is online at Lifelong Faith. I wrote it this past week. And it was, what are we learning through the pandemic? So I've been watching what churches are doing. I've been talking to churches, listening, doing webinars, in meetings, and I identified a couple, and you could add some of your own to this as well. One of the things that's happened in this disruption liminal phase is we've really focused our attention on people as opposed to programs or getting people to church and all that's kind of institutional agenda kind of things. We've had to refocus on people because people's lives were totally disrupted. Okay. Like overnight, parents became the schoolhouse, the church house, the workhouse, all rolled into one. My daughter and son-in-law are both teachers. Well, Tuesday was a learn at home day because of the snow. And so in one room, one was teaching, another room, another was teaching, another room, my daughter in third grade, she was learning. And so the whole house had been transformed into, in quotes, a school, but it's also a workplace, but it's also the church place. It's all of those things rolled into one. So I think we're focusing on people, we're listening better. We're looking at their needs, their struggles, their life issues, and we're saying, how do we respond? How is faith formation responsive to them? How do we not put another burden on them? In a sense, becoming more person-centered and less program-centered, especially programs in fixed times and fixed places that people have to get themselves to. Second, we're expanding our vision of where church and faith formation happens. We've moved from a church building mindset. The only religious things in the world can only happen within the four walls of the church, school, whatever this facility is, to a multi-space approach where faith forming happens at home, in online spaces, in small groups, in mentoring relationships, in independent learning in the world. And so the campus for faith formation went from a building to the world. And so we discovered and rediscovered how the home is the domestic church. It's where faith formation happens. People are worshiping at home. They're praying at home. They're learning at home. They're doing all kinds of things at home, things that used to happen prior to March 18th at church, all of a sudden began to happening at home, which 20 centuries ago is where the church started. We're using new approaches, tools, methods, and media, many which have been available really for a whole decade. I remember doing 21st century faith formation workshops in the early 2010s, 2012, 2013. So a lot of these tools were available. The pandemic has motivated or forced us to use these as integral to faith formation. So you never expected to be proficient in using Zoom, but you have become that. Okay, you never expected to be proficient in digital methods and media, but you've had to be that because we've had to be where people are, because people can't be where we are. We're offering faith formation now in both synchronous, real-time, and asynchronous formats with online and hybrid approaches, expanding the opportunities for people to engage in faith-forming experiences. When we were fixed time, fixed place, either you come or you don't get it, that kind of faith formation, those days are over. They're over because the pandemic has simply disrupted all of that. So synchronous, real-time, in a place faith formation is over. Now, synchronous faith formation is not over, but now combined with asynchronous, it again broadens the campus and the options we have. We're making faith formation mobile. Now, since 2007, we could have been very mobile. 2007 was the advent of the iPhone. And so life became more mobile. But now we're bringing faith formation where people are actually live using these new digital tools, methods, and media. If you have a phone, a laptop, a tablet, we can meet you there. We can deliver faith formation. We can engage you there. You can engage with us there. And we're creating playlists of faith-forming content for all ages. If you're not familiar with playlists, I'll talk more about it. But the playlist has become the new textbook, a digital platform where faith formation experiences, content, audio, video, learning is aggregated and pulled together for people so they can learn it in these mobile ways at home, on the go, in the car, wherever. We're also using traditional tools in new ways. I have a good friend who's turned their weekly newsletter / bulletin into their primary faith formation tool, digitizing it, adding video into it, delivering it out to everybody on every list they could possibly find. A couple of weeks back, he said they were a little bit late with the delivery for some reason, and he started getting phone calls. This is a pastor of a Catholic church. Started getting phone calls and emails asking, "Did you forget me this week?" So that's now people asking for a bulletin or a newsletter is really saying something. But it's a traditional tool that's been made new in this digital way, interactive, connected to social media, et cetera. And then lastly, we're using social media platforms for connection and sharing. Okay. With all the downfalls of Twitter and Facebook and the rest, we can redeem those and use them as connecting and communicating with people of all ages, sharing and discussing faith and spirituality, and we've seen that happen, engaging people to share what they are learning and how they are practicing their faith by posting, by interacting, by creating content, video, images, stories, and a lot more. So these things are actually happening. And some of them were already happening prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic has simply accelerated our use of expanding faith formation to all ages, all formats, every place people live. It's just really, really important. So the question I kind of have for all of us is, if that's all true, how do we build on our innovative efforts as a platform for creating the future of faith formation? I've heard from more leaders, it's, well, when this is over and everyone's vaccinated and we get back to church as usual, faith formation will be fine. And I kind of chuckle and think, have you not been paying attention? There isn't a going back, there's only going forward. So our question as faith formation leaders is, we're not responsibility for the whole church, but in terms of how people learn and grow in faith and discipleship, how do we move into the adaptive phase? That becomes the central question. How do we move into the adaptive phase? We have the 100-year challenge in front of us. And so in the adaptive phase, the question is, how do we reach everybody? And one of the things we're learning, I think, through the pandemic, and we'll continue to learn throughout 2021, is we have the knowledge and tools and resources to do this. We have ways to reach children and teens all the way through older adults. And they're both analog and digital approaches. It's all of this. That's the key. And we have the knowledge, tools, and resources to address religious diversity. We know that we're only becoming more religiously diverse. And the group in red, vibrant faith and active engagement people, are a shrinking percentage of all those who have been either engaged or baptized in our churches. That doesn't mean we can't do something, though. And so we've been talking about this. I did a project back in the late, like 2009, 2010 called Faith Formation 2020, and then it arrived. Well, we talked about this kind of religious diversity, these 4 different religious profiles, if you will. And so we know that the orange and the blue are growing, the spiritual, not religious, or the uninvolved, the unaffiliated. But we now have knowledge and tools and resources to address those as we've gotten more proficient during the pandemic about using digital tools and technologies, mobile resources, accessing a lot of digital tools and resources, putting people in roles of small groups and mentors and guides. We are in a position to address this diversity. I'll talk more about that. So, how do we have faith formation that is adaptive, responsive, resilient, and flexible? Because we don't want another pandemic to shut everything down, and it doesn't need to do that. In other words, so many of the things that we're doing during the pandemic, we could have started doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But now we're doing it. So how do we go forward? So adaptive, responsive, resilient, flexible. Okay, so I'm going to dig into all the practices. I'm going to speak more about playlists. Yes, Linda will be doing that. Where are the slides? On the lifelongfaith.com website, just click on home and you'll see APSE 2021 will be a sub menu, and click on that. It's all there. Okay, let's see if anybody else has questions. Okay, so let's keep going, and just let's not that fast. Sorry, that was the preview. Okay, I want to highlight 6 keys to being more adaptive, responsive, resilient, and flexible. Number 1, and for me, this is a big one. we need to be informed by the best research that we have available on forming faith. I'm not going to go into depth on that. We could do a whole day on that. But there's so much great research in the last 20 years about forming faith in children, teens, adults, families, intergenerational, that we need to see that informing what we do. Second, we need to be goal-centered. Third, holistic. Fourth, think seasonally with a lot of variety. Fifth, think about the three modes or spaces in which we program: online, hybrid, and physical. Talk more about each of these. And then how we personalize faith formation in this new world using playlists of faith forming content and experiences. Okay, let's dig in and keep putting questions in the box. Kathy, good question. How to honor copyright and resource when sharing online? I'll do a very quick response, what's in context. I don't put other people's content onto any of my playlists. I link to it. Now, you could always add a YouTube video that you are free to put that onto your site. You don't really put it on your site. You simply have a link that plays on your site. So a lot of linking, a lot of connecting, putting your own resources and or getting permission. So those are the kind of things. So you always want to honor where it's coming from, but that doesn't, you'll see in a minute, it doesn't stop you from developing really rich playlists of content. And a lot of content is now, take this, use it. So you simply cite where it's from and you can use it on your playlist. So I think what the pandemic has done, the amount of digital content has exploded in the last year. And a lot of it is, please use this, just cite where it's from. You know, like photos, you know, you go to Unsplash or Pixabay, and it just says, put the photographer's name underneath it. You have freedom to use this on your website and your promotion, whatever. That's the model we're moving towards. Informed by research. Here's a bunch of research, and except for Families of Faith, which came out about 10 years, not even, about 8 years ago, all the rest was in the last year or two. And so research on young adults, teens, children, parenting, spirituality, there's just a ton of this. But to stay current on the research and let it inform how people grow in faith and what their needs are. And so a lot of the research, like the Barna research on Gen Z, will talk about how they learn, how they interact, what their new needs are. And so how do we learn about this new generation that's part and parcel of our children and youth programming? Second one is to begin with why. So many churches begin with the program, and then their whole goal is marketers to get people to come to the program, you know, incentivize their program, you know, give away gifts to come to the program, all that kind of stuff, you know, have requirements to come to the program, you know what I'm talking about. And so I'd like to reverse that. I think program-centered, I think programs are really, really important. They serve a purpose, but they're a response to what you want to accomplish and why you want to accomplish that. So the question I said every church needs to have is they need to say, what is our why? If you've watched Simon Sinek's video on why, you know, on asking why, it's a TED Talk. It's well worth taking the 15 minutes to watch it because it's just focused on why we're doing what we're doing. And so the question I have is, what are your goals for maturing in faith? What does a fully formed disciple of Jesus Christ look like within your congregation and tradition? And so I in the article that I have in the handouts for this, I just identified 10 goals that have come both out of our Christian tradition and out of research about what really forms people in faith. And they have to do with discipleship and scripture and teaching and our particular Christian story and praying. I mean, they're a combination of the really practices infused with our beliefs, living with moral integrity, serving, working for justice, worshiping, being engaged in the community, and practicing your faith through the gifts that you've been blessed with. Thank you, Deb, for Simon Sinek's talk. Yes, on Start With Why. The key with everybody should have this as a poster or as a screensaver so that you constantly say everything we do is geared towards these goals. How do we accomplish these goals in the lives of people? Because when you start with people and you start with what you want to see them have, what you want to see happen in their lives, towards what goals are you promoting in terms of faith and discipleship? If you're goal-centered and people-centered, then the programs are going to flow from that. as opposed to the other way around, we have programs and we don't know the why and what it's promoting. So one goal, many methods, lots of media, because that goals focuses on people growing in faith and discipleship. Second building block is third actually is holistic. We know people grow in faith are formed in intergenerational relationships and community. So it has to be part of our faith formation. They grow, and we rediscover the importance of family for faith forming, not just for children, but for parents, not just for children, but for young adults as well as teens. And people grow in peers or life stage groups. And so when we're thinking about faith formation in this coming out in this more adaptive sense, how do we integrate intergenerational faith forming experiences, family faith forming experiences, and then peer or life stage faith forming experiences? So much so that across the life cycle, from children all the way through older adults, faith formation is a blend or a weaving of intergenerational family and life stage. It's just as important for the 75 or 80-year-old to be connected to other generations and family, as well as their particular life stage needs, as it is for the child. I want to think more holistically about these three kinds of faith forming experiences, and to ask, what would it be like if every year, we'll just take children had experiences of faith formation and faith growth that were intergenerational, that happened at home with their families, and that happened with their peer group. To break out of the Sunday school mindset into faith forming in these three environments mindset. We have the opportunity to do that because the Sunday school, the weekly is already broke, because we're not able to keep that going during the pandemic. So don't put it back together again. Put something new together. That's the adaptive thing. So you can try to go back and put Humpty Dumpty back together again, get some glue out and see if you can put it back the way it used to be. I'd suggest move forward. That's what we used to do. What are we going to do now in the 2020s? And I think holistic faith formation is going to be a big part of that. Think seasonally. Don't think about a year. Think about 4-month blocks of time. I like September, December because it includes Advent, Christmas, January, April because it includes Lent and Easter, and May, August. And if you think seasonally, then we can offer a variety of programs and a variety of models and options and timeframes and full days and half days, but within a 4-month window that people can grab onto and understand. No one thinks about a year anymore. And so we're thinking about programming. Those are just some examples of programming things. Think about each month as having some variety in it. Some things might span multiple months. Some things might span just one time within a month, but to think that way. And a great example, I put their catalog online on the APSE 21 page. Westwood Lutheran Church in Minneapolis developed this a couple of years back. They call it Westwood U. And it was basically to kind of, how do we swap out what we're doing with children and teens, especially teens and confirmation, into something that's much more varied, has a lot more options, that kind of stuff. And they developed Westwood U. It's a great. You'll see all the different varieties. Even during the pandemic, they've offered a lot of variety. But of course, it's more digital or small group or mentored than it is large group stuff. But even the courses, the experiences they're offering are kind of woven together in terms of knowing, living, and growing. So it's holistic and balanced. It's not just peer group. Some of it's with intergenerational and some of it's with your family. So it's holistic, 3 environments, and it's seasonal, and it's got a lot of options and variety within it. And then for the confirmation students, confirmation young people, they give them a sample kind of menu that you have to pick from in order, over the course of 2 years, you do what they call 15 total Westwood U courses. And a course, by the way, can be 2 hours, can be a day. It could be on campus, it could be off campus, it could be at home, it could be mentored, lots of variety in what they're doing. And I think the pandemic has opened us up to say, we need a lot of variety and choice because people's lives are so complex today. It's very hard to say everybody, like the one size fits all doesn't fit anybody anymore. One size fits one because of all the diversity. And the pandemic, maybe I remember back in school, but this was 100 years ago. So it was, a long time ago. But the topographical maps, I mean, you remember you had a flat map of the US, and you had a topographical map, the mountains came up in the valleys. Well, the pandemic kind of was an emerging topographical map, just brought out all this stuff and made it clear that there are things that just aren't working. Westwood U, way before the pandemic, already had anticipated we need to be in this multi-mode kind of style of faith formation. There's, the possibilities here are really endless, whether it's more discipleship, Bible theology, whether it's Christian practices, whether it's interest or kindred or life stage. It's just a mix and variety of all these good things. This may be the most important learning that's come out of the pandemic, even though I would say being more person-focused is the underlying one, is that we've always had these 3 programming models. We just haven't used 2 of them very much, okay? So we all got our doctoral degrees in gathered programming at church, camps, mission trips, retreat centers, community places. Well, this will be the second summer in which mission trips are really not going to even be an option. We're going to hopefully maybe do something with Vacation Bible School. Most church programs are occasional, but not regular. I live in Connecticut. Sunday worship is still limited by the percentage of people you can have at Sunday worship. Camp programs are going to be, so gathered programming has been kind of was where the loss has been experienced. And so from March 15th to March 16th, we went from red to blue. And we started doing online programming because we had no choice. We had to do something, right? And so whether it's individuals, families, or small groups, we started putting content online. We started sending resources home, so both analog and digital. And then we started doing some redoing of those online models. We did some live streaming. We did some, Zoom groups with people. Zoom Bible studies and the rest. And then slowly, as the pandemic's gone on, we've kind of moved towards that hybrid middle, which is both online and gathered, but usually small group gathered or mentored, or family clusters or family pods. So these 3 models of gathered, hybrid, and online programming, they'll continue post-pandemic. And they're kind of the future of the way we're going to think about faith formation programming. Is it online? Is it a hybrid? Is it gathered? Is it large group, small group, mentored, independent, et cetera? This is a great example. Kenilworth Union Church, this is their catalog. I put them online so you can take a look at what they've actually, but they've coded their catalog, and you'll see, some things are synchronous, and then right in the middle of the asynchronous faith formation. And so this happens when you want it. So they're synchronous real time. So Sunday worship is real time, okay? 9 o'clock, it's synchronous. Now it comes right now on online or Zoom, eventually be both, and maybe online as well, but it's fixed time, synchronous. Asynchronous is kind of on your own. You pick the best time, but we're available, we're ready for you. And this is a video, and then and activities on their website or on a playlist. And then the midweek groups are kind of a blend, online Zoom. So they're synchronous, but I'm sure that there's material on their website that are asynchronous. And so you see a church doing these multiple models of program, gathered, hybrid, and online, some synchronous, real time, some asynchronous on your own time. You're all familiar with the digital tools. Roberta, you're not a dinosaur. I'm going to talk about playlists coming up. It's new, so you're okay. We all know these tools. I won't even go through those. I will say this. What has certainly emerged is people recognizing, we really could use a faith formation web. Okay, we could have done that a decade ago, but doing it now is good. And even online learning platforms like Edmodo or Seesaw, which are much more user-friendly than Google Classroom per se. We've all become proficient at Zoom and or Facebook Live and or YouTube Live, so the streaming piece. Facebook groups give us a chance to both be synchronous and asynchronous in a group format with lots of interaction. We've gotten better at our email tools and how to use them as faith formation. And again, how to use Facebook, Instagram as learning tools. And then some churches have really gotten into all the variety of digital learning apps to creating portfolios and videos and all kinds of stuff that a lot of our children and teens already do in school as part of their school program, but we've never thought about how we use those to help them become really, self-initiated learners and create content. I'm going to offer 4 things about online. I'm going to offer a couple of things on hybrid, and then I'll do playlist, and then we'll have some time for questions, hopefully, that you put into the chat. So feel free to ask about that. Here's 4 things I've seen people doing in the online programming world. So this is online, not hybrid. It's things, everything's happening online. So we know we've done worship services that have been live streamed, but a lot of places have done faith formation live streamed. Like the first week of, like they've even kept their schedule. So the first week of the month, whatever day or day, we're gonna live stream this into your home. And so the presentation, better yet, demonstration, less worship, more like a cooking show in terms of live streaming. And so the content is delivered by the team. And then the faith formation happens through playlist, whether it's in small groups, like you'll see next, or whether it's the family or it's individuals. And then other churches have done live streaming of the presentation content. And you wouldn't do this every week. It might be monthly, the most are doing it. Plus online faith formation through playlists, and then online small group meetings, usually using Zoom. Online faith formation playlist is another option, plus online small group meetings, no live streaming. And so you can imagine a Bible study doing this. We organize people into small groups. We're studying this particular book of the Bible or this theme or whatever. And so you can access the content online, read it, watch the videos, whatever, and then we'll have an online Zoom meeting to process and discuss that. It might be 1 week is online, 1 week is small group, back and forth. And then online asynchronous. Very few churches are doing this with what I think what we could be doing is that there's such a vast amount of great digital content for adult faith formation. It's just, I don't understand why churches don't build a great platform, curate adult faith formation, and provide a variety of topics and things that people can learn on their own. Asynchronous faith formation for individuals, especially adults, and maybe families for like the church year season. So Lent's coming up. What's your playlist for Lent look like? What are you putting in front of families for Lent, as well as the whole church? But I'm just thinking in this case of families. So online programming, we're going to get better and better at this, but it's not going to go away because a lot of people have found this to be a way that they can be involved in faith formation and Sunday worship that the fixed time on campus, fixed space programming does not allow them. And people's lives are only going to be more complex post-pandemic, not less. We're not going back to some idyllic, Garden of Eden where everybody's life's going to fall back, and it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And if you plan for that, make sure you have a therapist on your speed dial. Hybrid. So this people will really, well, I don't like the online. We're not doing relationship. Well, you know that on Zoom you can build relationships, right? I mean, we know that. I mean, some people have done online graduate degrees and become closer to the people in the online only program than they ever were when they sat in class with a professor. I mean, so we know that's not true, but we like the relational piece. No problem. Hybrid allows us to do that. Hybrid or blended, it goes by both names. So you can do an in-person gathered faith formation plus at-home online faith formation. So for example, a number of churches I've worked with and a number of churches I've talked with, they gathered in 1 week of the month is gathering week. So I have a good friend who does intergenerational faith formation. She has, 400 or 500 families who come for intergenerational faith formation. Obviously, he has to spread them out over the course of a week, socially distanced, masked up, and all the rest. But once a month, she gathers them. Now, they would basically be doing this at least 2 or 3 times a month. Once a month, she gathers them. And then they've organized into family pods where they feel safe with each other. Maybe they go to school together and all that. And she delivers the online faith formation through a playlist to them that goes deeper into the content. So like week 1, gather, introduce the concepts or themes or topics. Week 2 and 3 and 4 go deeper, but it's on their time and it's asynchronous. So it's online, asynchronous, like they schedule their own time. What's happened as a result of that is that families have really gotten to know each other and build relations with each other. And it's extended this intergenerational feel that the whole parish has had for 25 plus years. And now these little pods are intergenerational. I mean, grandmas and grandpas even participating. Again, it's got to be, socially safe and all the rest, but it's working. So that's one example. And then in-person gathered, at home online, and then online gathering. So that's churches that say, okay, come once a week, do something, week number 2, do something at home online. We have a playlist. Week 3, we're going to have small group Zoom meetings. Week 4, learn on your own. So it's synchronous and asynchronous, large group, small group. And then you have in-person gathered with live streaming or video presentation. So the people come together, they have an experience. The next week might be an at-home online experience, and then they live stream week 3 with the presentation. We only want you to come out once a month. We don't want to risk you coming out too many times. Well, like post-pandemic in 2022, that's a great model to keep with. Why? Because we know people aren't coming every week right now, and their lives are really busy. I mean, when you tell people it's a 24 or 28 week program, it's like a lifetime commitment. You're lucky you don't have to give CPR or oxygen to people when you do that. So this is a way you can blend. They're hybrid. You blend the best of both. And then of course, online plus in-person small group gatherings with a playlist. And then a lot of people, worship has turned into a hybrid experience. You may stream it, that'd be the online option, but even if you come to worship, lots of us have been doing weekly follow-ups to Sunday worship, whether it's the take home or this. Well, now that weekly playlist is digital. So we've done some hybrid, though we may not have named it as such. We've been a little intimidated by the online, though we had to get really good at that during the pandemic. And we can come then back to gathered in 2022 in a much more strategic way and start asking ourselves, do I really need to gather people at church for this? Can I do this in other ways? Or is gathering at church just one option of many options for how I can do this program? In other words, multi-platform programming, same program in different platforms. You reach more people. And one of the ones, we're all one of the great examples of hybrid is flipped learning. And this has been popular in education. Salman Khan of the Khan Academy has made this really, really popular real quick, where what we used to teach in class, you learn online, playlists. And what we used to do as homework is now the application piece you do when we're together. So it's using what can I do in individual or small groups online to the best ability, and then use the gathered for the kinds of things you can't do online, which is having, experiential activities and application and learning together. So that's a good example of a hybrid model in action. Okay. Judy says, what's the difference between at-home online and online gatherings? Well, so at-home online, it would be one family. An online gathering might be adults getting together to do a Bible study or a book group. So they're both same kind of method, but the online gathering with the Bible study group would be like using Zoom to talk and share that. So let's talk about personalizing. I'm going to just skip ahead a little bit because I want to go right to playlist. It's a longer discussion. You've all done things like this, but you haven't called it a playlist. So this is an example of taking, this is Taking Faith Home from Milestones Ministry. You can actually purchase this. And for every Sunday of the year, they do one of these Taking Faith Home activities. But it's a menu of ways to grow deeper in the Sunday readings. So whether it's Bible readings or prayers and blessings, milestone, conversation devotions, it's probably rare that anybody does everything here. So it's not like a script, but it is a menu of experiences that will take you deeper into the Sunday reading. In this case, it was the Epiphany Sunday. Take you deeper into the Sunday readings and the application of that in your life, to pray them, to read them, to celebrate those, to act on those. That's a playlist. And so what people have started doing because of the pandemic is a lot of the content you would have taught, or a lot of things in like the program manual, the teacher's guide, becomes playlist of learning. And so the best playlists have multiple options so people can pick and choose what they want to do, but all on a topic or a theme. This is why I did a little pilot project 2 years ago. This was a playlist for Holy Week. Okay, it was for Catholic parishes. That's why the Catholic examples. But on the left side, I did kind of a Palm Sunday playlist. I don't expect everybody to do everything, but between video and audio, between scripture reading, between coloring activity, there's a menu of things to pick, all on a topic or a theme. On the right was their introduction to Holy Week. In video, again, I don't expect people to do all of this, but it's aggregated, it's curated, it's hopefully neatly organized for people. They could do a guide to Holy Week, a virtual Stations of the Cross, a Station of the Cross activity, Holy Week strip activity, etc. This is just one Sunday, same kind of thing. A symbol, a children's storybook, on the theme. This is all curated. I didn't create really any of the content. I curated that content. Wherever you see kind of that, the blue link, that's a link to where the activity or the scripture reading is. And of course, this is all on YouTube. This is Saddleback Kids. It's on YouTube. And then on my web program, I can embed a YouTube video, not copy it, just embed the link so it plays from my website, so I don't send anybody to YouTube. Kathy Pittenger, a friend and colleague of mine who works for the Michigan Conference of the United Methodist Church, she's been creating playlists for years. So you can go to her website. I have the link available just on my AppC21 page on my website. This is one that she did for what she do. One scripture passage, Wise and Foolish Builders, primarily for children and their parents. You can see she's embedded some things. She have links to other content. She has some activity options, songs. So took the Wise and Foolish Builders and gave people a variety of ways to learn about that. So sometimes playlists offer more options than we could ever do in a gathered program. So if this week's Sunday worship experience, the Wise and Foolish Builders, was the scripture reading and we preached on it, this would be the activities that take you through the week, as an example. Janet Campbell at First Presbyterian Stillwater, in March, she pivoted, and I would think innovated, really, more than pivoted. She created a playlist. So this is one for teenagers. She subscribed to the Fuller Youth Institute's Faith in an Anxious World, and she put the playlist together with that. You could see how this could lend itself to a small group Zoom meeting, even a couple of them with smaller groups of teens to process this. So read, watch, listen, things to wonder about, a prayer, and an activity. So this can be a standalone. It can flow out of a session. It can be the content that we use as a group discussion. It has all those possibilities, but it's the new programming tool that allows us to pull together lots of ways to learn that are focused. And in many ways, it's the bridge between just, do your own thing, a list of links, which nobody ever links to, by the way. It's got to be designed much more like this, and then gathered programs. This is another example of adult playlist. This was on this church that did monthly themes. I just gave them an example of a theme for their first month on gratitude. A couple of videos, gratitude prayer, a psalm for each week, a couple of things to read, and then a gratitude through the day practice. So all of that curated. I didn't write any of that. So you go to your great curation sites, places that you tap into that already do this for you. And many people are familiar with Tracy Smith. This is what she does every week in her email. Or buildingfaith.org from Virginia Theological Seminary. They curate great resources for people. So there's lots of these available. So I'll do a closing story. I like the story. It's pizza. I'm Italian. So, like who doesn't like pizza, right? So I was working with a church not far from me, just two towns over from where I live. And they were a church that's done family intergenerational faith formation for, probably over a decade. Okay. People come, to a monthly gatherings for, high octane, thematic program, in a big space, tables and chairs, 300 or 400 people. They do 3 or 4 of these in the first week of the month. Well, what stopped as soon as the pandemic hit, gathering all those people in one space. So they came up with a different approach. They do drive-through pickup with the whole family to pick up each month's material. So they do something that's physical. So it's not just go online, they actually do something. So on the time you would have come to the program on the first week of the month, you come to church and you do a drive-by. So each month's materials are in the pizza box. Scripture, family praying activities, watching a video, making a craft, whatever it might be, is part of the lesson. There'll also be bring back completed activities in the pizza box. We'll invite you by email to RSV each month for which of the 3 program nights works best for you. We'll offer some parish-wide safe activities, and you have to do 2 of those during the year. Then you'll have the option of actually buying pizza from Tuscany Pizza, who donated the boxes. You can pick up the pizza as you drive through, pick up your faith formation kit for the month. So they actually get a chance to meet everybody monthly. They don't ever get out of their cars. They get the faith food and the pizza food if they want every month. And then, of course, they use online playlists. They could have small Zoom meetings if they wanted to. They have all, but it's a nice way of just bringing a lot of things together when you don't have the option of gathering 300 parents, children, and grandparents in a room to do family intergenerational learning. So it just gives you a little bit of, oh my God, there are just so many options for doing this. So if you were if you had Chinese restaurants go by, you could pick up, Chinese, containers, and you could have some fun with all of these things. So our playlist asynchronized. Yes, playlists are always asynchronous because people are going to learn on their own or learn with their family. And then when you do in-person things, you can use the content from the playlist or their experience of that as part of the learning session. So a lot of times there's some kind of gathered piece, whether it's hybrid, like a small group, not usually a large group, but that triggers off the playlist. So it's hard to get people to just go do the playlist for this month. People go, oh, yeah, I'm not doing that. Okay. But if you have live streaming, we come together once a month in physical locations. We have small groups. The face-to-face experience in some way, whether it's in person or digitally mediated, triggers the use of the playlist. And so you get people kind of used to that. The easy way to launch people into playlists is just building a playlist on every Sunday worship experience, every Sunday of the year. They start to get good at that. Lent's coming up. If you've never done a playlist, Lent is the perfect time for playlists, okay? Because there's a gazillion content stuff. You got all kinds of content coming at you. You could organize it by children and families, teens, adults. I have one person who did one a year and a half ago for Advent. He organized it by groups and then also told people how long it would take to do the activity. This is a 5-minute a day. This is a 10-minute once a week. Here's a 15-minute, set up some time. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, it's great. Let's get other people talking here. Thanks for all the comments. So playlists are usually on a website, so they have a stable platform, but there's no reason why you can't email a playlist. Okay, Constant Contact, not as a PDF necessarily, but in Constant Contact, MailChimp, Flocknote, whatever format you use, you could also email to selected audiences their playlist or direct them to the website. Like you would do a newsletter that says, keep on reading, and it just connects you to the page where it is. But you want a stable platform for it. You don't want to just put it in an email. Let's see, take out, how would you incorporate a mix of families who are okay with being in person versus wanting to remain online? Okay, so if I got families who are already maybe because of school or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, something, already organized into a safe pod. Whatever I would ask one family to do, I said they can do this together. So gather together whenever time you want. It's our playlist is online, it's asynchronous. Do the activity together. If you're live streaming something, gather in one person's home and live stream it. So I had somebody do, like last summer, they did a vacation Bible school this way in one church. They live streamed vacation Bible school. But before that, they sent home the VBS package, which was day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of activities. Some families got together. I mean, they could even do it outside, all right? And the live stream came through, basically in 3 hours, they live stream about, 40 minutes of content, 45 minutes, 15 minutes, and do some activities, take a break, have a snack. 15 minutes, do some activities, take a break, have a snack. 15 minutes, and then we closed it in prayer, So it was live streamed, but there was a group dimension to it. So it's nice. It was a family pod, family cluster. That works. So I think you do a lot of that. People are tired of just being online, and they should be. It's been a year, it just, and who isn't tired of Zoom? I love seeing all of you, but I'd rather see you in a workshop room where, in Chicago, interacting with you and then getting a cup of coffee later. Okay. But this is the restrictions. But if we get good at these tools and approaches, we can then find ways to blend them and integrate them, so we're going to build on people's experience. People might actually be really happy to have a cup of coffee and sit down and talk with each other, maybe even at church, God forbid. Copyright issues. Yeah. When I talk about embedding a video, I mean embedding the link and then the web, I use Weebly.com for my websites. You download a little software piece into the web page, paste in the URL, and it plays, but it has never left YouTube. The video still resides there. I haven't copied it. I'm simply playing it like a TV player. A lot of the videos work the same way. You can embed the videos with a code, but the video never leaves where it was. It just plays on your website, which is a nice way to do, and audio is the same way. You can play audio and that kind of stuff. So you're not always linking people. I pulled together some playlist type materials, Teresa says, but in surveying families, they have found they don't get much of any engagement. Okay. So yeah. So the key with playlists is they're really not a standalone. They're a connected strategy. So if it connects to Sunday worship, if it connects to a live stream, if it connects to a small group experience, so like Lent's coming up, you can put a variety of things up there, but maybe on Facebook, you have a Lenten challenge. Okay. And so each day you introduce something and ask people to share a story, a video, a clip, that kind of stuff. One church last year for Lent, they used Instagram, which is in many ways a lot easier to use than Facebook. You see it all visually, either Instagram stories or Instagram photos. And what they were able to do is that every week they asked people to post something they were doing this week from the playlist of Lent up onto Instagram. Well, and then of course you pick 10 people who prime the pump. All right. So you take them to dinner and you give them coupons and you send them Christmas presents. But those are the 10 who get the thing going. Well, you know who those 10 people are. And they get it going. And then they tell other people who tell other people. And all of a sudden people start populating the Instagram. So you're right. Playlists on their own, they're not playlists won't save us. Playlists need to be connected to other bigger strategies. That's why they're kind of like a textbook doesn't save anybody, but it can be used in a variety of different ways in program formats. Playlists are the same thing. Yeah. So when you're pulling materials together, you don't think about this as kind of like the throw everything against the wall strategy. People expect it to be curated, expect it to be doable, expect it to be short, more visual than print, or audio, which you could take on the road with you, that kind of thing. So I always say, check out test out your playlist with some people that really like you, that will take a look at it and give you some honest feedback. And then you don't spend a lot of time curating. If you go to places like I put some, on my website, I have a section called Curate, and it's got some curate libraries like buildingfaith.org. And then I curated some places to go. All right. So, and publishers have been really good about putting a lot of free content out there. You subscribe to like a half dozen of these, what I'll call curated sites. They link you to a lot of good stuff. So you don't spend a lot of time curating. What you have to spend a lot of time is architecting, is designing it so people will access it. And so if I was designing a thing for families with young children, I make sure I get some parents give me some feedback. Is this doable? Is it feasible? Like, I think this is great, but do you think it's great? And will people do it? That's what you have. And that's what Little Advisor Group. And I would put it on a website. And I would send them a link and say, this page is hidden right now, but I want you to take a look at it and tell me whether this works or not. Which is what will get you out of the habit of just putting up links on a page. No one follows those links. They need a description. They need you to write the web page to them and their lives. And if you tell them how long it takes, it's even better. Or the benefits of clicking on this link to download the Lenten calendar and why it's such a great thing. Like, you got to sell it a little bit, like, don't, put a little chutzpah behind it and say, this is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Okay. We've got a couple of more, one more minute. Let me see if we've got a couple more in. Recent faith formation research. So I can't answer that quick. So what I will say is this. When you go to my Lifelong Faith website, you can join the mailing list. You won't get anything to sell because I'm not selling anything. You'll get the weekly feature. And one of the weekly features that I'll start to introduce is research that's usable. Like there's a lot of research, but what's the research that's most usable to us? In the next month or two, I'm going to undo some of that. So Brittany, even if you don't want to subscribe to another mailing list, just write me an email and I'll just keep the email. And when it's up there, I'll send you a link. And that's true for anybody if you're looking for things. So I'll be happy to do that. Okay, don't type too furiously because we got, this is being recorded and the PowerPoint's online. So when you go online, so I'll say this, when you go online to Lifelong Faith, if you can't find something and you don't remember my email address, you go to the bottom of the page, the footer, my email address is there. Just send me a note and say, I'm looking for this, can you help? I don't mind answering those. In fact, I enjoy answering those kind of questions. I love curating and finding resources. So feel free to join the Lifelong Faith website. You don't have to in order to download the material. I know you get plenty of email. I do a weekly article that kind of takes some of the best, and it's really devoted just to faith formation. So like the research, what really impacts faith formation. So the kind of things I've done with you today are the kinds of things I'm doing on the website. I have a whole section called Design 21, which kind of unpacks what I talked about today. I'm not going to get to all these questions, so sorry. But I'll leave with this parting thought. We have learned an awful lot about our people and faith formation during the pandemic. We should do ourselves a corporate favor by getting a journal and sitting down and writing what you've learned. Because we've learned a tremendous amount about how we can engage people in ongoing growth in faith and discipleship in some of the worst situations possible. So we got a little bit of a sense of how they did faith formation in the first couple of centuries. It wasn't ideal. Like they had a lot to deal with, right? So I just want to encourage you to write down what you're learning and to gather with colleagues to share what you're learning. No griping, no whining, no moaning, just sharing what you're learning because it's invaluable. Everyone's getting a graduate course in church and faith formation during this major disruption. We should learn from that. And that's what I tried to do today and say, there's so much we can do. We've learned a lot. Give yourselves credit for still being here a year later and learning so much that you can take into 2020, rest of 21, 22, and 23. And I'm happy to walk with you that. Just keep me, join the mailing list or just send me an email. I'm happy to help you. So thanks for stopping by. I wish we could be in person, have a cup of coffee and talk more about this, but soon, maybe next year at this time. So thank you. God bless all of you. Thanks.